Hello everyone, it's Christine here, and I have got a lovely little craft for you, which is to create these fabric covered buttons. Now you can use old shank buttons. I'm using this jar of buttons that I got recently at an op shop for $1 for a whole bag of them. They are fabric covered, but it's not a very nice fabric that they're actually covered with. As you can see, they've even got a bit of aging on the back of them. But as soon as I saw them in the op shop, which is like your charity store or thrift store overseas, I knew that they would be just perfect for covering with a fabric. And I had the idea of using my smallest Suffolk puff maker from Clover, which is this 20mm Clover Suffolk puff maker. You can, I think, also get knockoff versions of these as well. I got these secondhand on Facebook Marketplace, and they do make it incredibly fast. You can make Suffolk puffs as well by hand, so don't feel you have to get the Suffolk puff maker. I'll also show you how you can make these sweet little doily, crocheted doily ones. So they look like they've actually been a crocheted button, which I saw the lovely Beck from So Be Curated showing some of them recently, that she'd got on a thrifted pillowcase. But I'm just using this lovely little miniature doily crochet pieces for that. And I've also made one using another crocheted doily. Where is that in my pile? Over here. Oops, another thing's caught up in it. And I'm just using one little diamond from this, what would have been an old tablecloth, I think. So I'll be showing you a few different ideas. I'll be showing you how I attach them onto these button cards. This was a free button downloadable that I found online. I've shared it previously. If it's still available, I'll link it below the video. If not, I'll try and find something similar that I can link below the video. And I've just printed this onto paper, attached it onto a piece of card, and then backed it with this lovely William Morris fabric, paper. And I'm attaching them onto the card using some vintage crochet thread, and I'm doing it so that each of them is attached separately, so that if you gift this to someone, they can cut off a button but all the other buttons will still stay attached. Likewise, if you have it in your craft room on display. I just think these would be a lovely Christmas, birthday, or just because present for folks, or if you're making little slow stitch packs to send out. I just think it's a very sweet idea, and I think you'll be able to find something. Either you might have something like this already in your collection, or you can keep an eye out for them at your charity stores as well. And it's such a wonderful way to use some of your special fabrics like Liberty type fabrics, or other fabrics with lovely small little prints on them. So I've just got a whole bunch of them here, and I'll be showing you how I make them. I think it's also a lovely way to use bits of embroidery, so I'll show you that as well. That won't be using the Suffolk puff maker, and I'll show you the crochet version. So without further ado, let's get stuck into some button making, and these are just some of the other ones as well that I have made. And what I like is that they still have their little shank showing at the back, so they can still be stitched through quite securely when you want to attach them onto something. So let me just move these up out of the way, but still visible. Let's grab our Suffolk puff maker, and then let's select a beard of fabric, a scrap of fabric. Let's take this one, because it's quite sweet. And let's find, so this is where you can kind of fussy cut. You can use your template to kind of work out where you want to do it. And so if you want it to be sort of central, you can hold it and then clip your Suffolk puff maker in place. I might even sit it down on the surface. Might be easier. So I'm just going to put my finger where I want it. Check where the top of so I have a marking on my Suffolk puff maker, so I know where the top is easily. So I've got that black marking and that marking at the back to make it easy for myself. That's just a little tip, because they clip together when those two things are lined up. If it's not lined up, you might find that it doesn't clip together. So if you've got it and you don't think it's working, that might be what's happening. Oops, I think I might have cut I had a threaded up needle, but I think I've managed to, oh no, I haven't managed to cut the thread. Got a bit of thread caught. So what I've done is just cut around and left a margin around. I'm then going to put my finger and hold the fabric down, and I'm going to come in with a stitch through this little lined up hole, and in fact the knot's going to try and pull through, so I'm just not going to tug too much on the first stitch. And I'm going to put one stitch in, and then I'm going to come back through that first stitch area and put a second stitch in. So that just helps to anchor it before you start. And I'm going to keep my finger pushing down on the fabric as I work around, because you're wanting to put stitches through the fabric and have it sort of folded down at the back, if that makes sense. But if you buy one of these, either Clover or the knockoff ones, they will probably come with instructions. But basically, yeah, keeping my finger on the fabric as I work my way around. And so the dot on here that I've put on here with the texture also works well, because that way you can easily see when you're actually getting back to your first hole, and you work all the way around, but when you get back to the top, you actually go back into that first hole that you stitched in. But I'll show you that in a moment. So we can see we're coming up to the left-hand side where the black texture marking is. So I'm going to go back for a final stitch into that same first hole. I'm then going to pull the template off. It comes off really easily. I'm going to flick the back template bit out, and then I'm just going to pull the thread so it starts to gather up. So I'm going to get it a bit gathered, but then I'm just going to put my finger in and loosen it a tiny bit and just distribute the gathers relatively evenly. I'm then going to grab one of my, and I don't mind using the ones that are the mixed colour for this, because we won't see it once it's in. And then I'm going to position that in the middle there, and then I'm going to gather it up and make sure my shank is still visible, and I'm going to pull it as tightly as I can pull it. I'm going to hold it, and then I'm going to give it another pull because it just loosened up a bit while I was getting my needle through. Then I'm going to put a stitch in and a knot in and pull it as tightly as I can to get it to sit tightly. Now at this point it can sometimes be helpful to put a couple of stitches across just to get it to sit nice and tightly, so that it doesn't kind of have any little bulgy points at the side. Sometimes you don't need to do that though, so just kind of judge it based on whether you think yours needs it. And obviously you still want to just keep that little shank able to be stitched through. So my shank's there, so I can see that I will be able to get a needle through that. So now I'll do another little notch, and then I'll do a second knot just to be sure, because I always like to make sure everything's secure. And I've actually managed to break my thread, which hasn't happened before, but that's okay. It has securely anchored. If I am at all worried, either I could kind of undo that, but I'm just going to see and make sure that that it is secure. Yeah, I think I was lucky in that the thread broke outside of where I'd actually been stitching that. So or beyond where I'd actually put the double knots in. So that is the benefit of the double knots as well. Maybe I had actually accidentally snipped my thread before, when I thought that I might have done that and weakened it. So that is as simple as the little covered fabric version. We can do another one together. Maybe we'll do this blue fabric. So this one I don't need to as much fussy cut because all the fabric's kind of beautiful. So again, lining up my black dots, clipping it in. If it doesn't go in at first, just check that they are nicely lined up, and then trimming around. Oops, I've got something attached to my scissors. So just coming around here like this. And I will get a new piece of thread just in case I did nip my thread before. Let's just grab a new piece. I was actually using this, maybe I'll use this green before in case for some reason there's something a bit defective in that polyester. It's always guaranteed to happen when you turn the camera on. Something always goes astray, because I've done all the other ones and not had a single thread snap. But I must admit I was mostly using this green last night when I was doing the other ones. So we're going to again come through just to the right of where and I just need to get a bigger notch because it is pulling through. Let's just make a bigger knot, trim the end off so we don't have to worry about the end later on. Did I say before that it's been a beautiful warm day here and we went for a picnic? Can't remember. I started this video a couple of times, I must admit. First I was a bit blathery. It's just chatting away. And so yeah, just pushing the fabric down at the back with the finger. And then you're just coming up and going down through the little made holes. And you do need to make sure you're not coming across where the plastic is, because otherwise it will not come out of the template. So this is just forming the stitches perfectly to get those little pleats that form when we tighten it all up. So we might make 3 of these. Oh, actually no, the next one we might do is the embroidered fabric, we might still be able to, I think we can still use the Suffolk puff for that one, but for the doily ones that will just be freehand stitching. So I've come back and I've done my final stitch in that first hole. Going to clip it off. As you can see, it comes off super easy. And then we're going to start to tighten it up, make sure the raw edges are tipping into the center, and just sort of distribute around the gathering so that it's a bit even. Then grab one of your buttons, push it into the hole, and just sort of even it up so the shank is sitting as centrally as possible. Have a look at the front to see you're happy with it. And then grab your thread, keeping it nice and tight, and put your stitches, your tightening up stitches in place. There we go. So that's 2 knots. I'm pretty happy. I don't think I need to do the cross stitches across that one, so I'm just going to secrete my end into the button, and I'm going to snip-a-doodle it off, and there we go. So next one, let's take this piece of embroidery, machine embroidery, and so I should be able to kind of press that. Let's face this up. I often try and put it sort of up one way so that I can know where the top is, but you can feel it as well. It's got a little, these makers have a little bobble on it as well, and I'm just pressing the middle of my flower into the middle, lining my top bit up. Sometimes it's a bit harder to click in when you've got a bit more thickness, but that worked okay. And then I'm going to trim around. So yeah, I love using a thrifty find straight away, and particularly when you see something and you just have an idea of how you're going to use it, because I'm sure this little bag of buttons, they looked very sort of unloved, and because they looked a bit old and a bit shabby, just sitting in an old plastic bag. But what a lovely creation to have out of them. And as I say, you don't need these exact type of buttons. Particularly if they do have the shank, it does work pretty well. And don't worry if your knot pulls through like the first time. You can just be a bit gentler and not give it such a tug, and often it will then stay in place. Now this is just feeling, I think it's okay. Just felt like maybe the template wasn't perfectly aligned, but I think it's actually because I'm possibly stitching through bits of the embroidery. It just was a bit hard to push the needle through. Yeah, I think that was just a piece of embroidery I was trying to stitch through. So same process. We work our way around. Yeah, I think there's another piece of embroidery here, so it's a bit hard to push the needle through. But again, I'm just holding the fabric down with my finger. These are quite petite ones, so yeah, it is really good having the Suffolk puff maker. It does just make it a bit easier, I think. Oh, there's a really thick piece of embroidery there. Let's see if I can get my... That's tough going on that one. Wow. I think that's with the machine embroidery. Sometimes I'll go over it quite a lot, and possibly with a nylon or something that's a bit more strong. Sorry, that was just my belly making thank you for dinner noises. Digesting away. We had some beautiful chicken schnitzel and salad with some baked potatoes for dinner. So back to the first hole. Oh, and I made some minty yogurt with fresh mint from the garden. So there we are. And I don't worry if something's not perfectly central. Sometimes I'll actually intentionally put something more like off to the side, because that can be a nice way to look at it too. So again, I'm going to tighten it up a bit, make sure the ends are tucked under, loosen it up a bit so that the gathering, and it's interesting actually here where it was hard to push through, it's actually quite coarse. So I'm not sure how that's going to crease, but or how it's going to gather, but we'll see. I'm sure it will be fine still. So this one I'm just going to have to pull up a bit more. Pretty happy with the positioning of that actually. Just want to get it nice and tight because, as I say, it's not, as you can see, it's not gathered in quite as far as some of the other ones because it does have that thickness in it at various points. Oops, and I've just unthreaded my needle, so I'll just rethread it before we do our tightening. And do another stitch just to be sure. Great, and then we can just take it down, pop it out, and then just cut it off so it springs back inside. And it's really handy to have good sharp scissors. These are from the lovely Fleur Woods workshop that I attended recently. She gifted us some beautiful scissors. So yeah, that's our little embroidered one. It's got lovely texture to it, and it does actually look like a little flower there, so I think that's very sweet. So now let's create some of these gorgeous crocheted, I'm going to call them cheetah crochet buttons, and I might swap over here to my crochet thread because I think that will work well for these. There we go. Okay. And then let's just get these. So I'm just going to cut two of them off and leave them joined at one of their points. And with these crochet, they don't tend to really come undone that much. You might get a little bit of fraying there, but we're going to be stitching around anyway. Now for my button, I'll select one that's fully like red or fully one colour because we will be seeing it through. Now if you had a button that you didn't want to see the colour of, you could first of all cover it with a thin fabric and then do this next step. So for example, I could be doing this over the top of one that I've already covered. So that is an option if you're underlying colour, but I don't mind the red. I think it gives a nice offset against the doily. And what I do on the back is this little hole that's in the middle. It's very convenient because I can push my little shank of my button if it doesn't jump out of my hands. Push that through that hole. I can then bring this over to the front, hold it so it stays in place. I've tied an end in my, and I'm going to just sort of secrete the end of my crochet thread just into that first little gap. And then what I've been doing is mostly just coming through twice through each of the holes. Oops, I think I just undid that stitch, so let's just start again. Twice through each hole, sort of, and letting this the stitches, now it's going the other way around. Let's just do it back this way. And letting the stitches sort of lay, so this stitch, let's just get that there. And just sort of positioning them a bit with my needle so this one lays as close to that edge. And then I'll do another one coming through here, and then I'll go into my next hole and let the stitch sort of lay down there, and then another stitch laying down on here, and then I just keep working my way around, sort of putting a stitch either side of each hole, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but you can kind of work it out. It was too hard when I was trying to push through the actual doily itself, so I found this worked pretty well, and you can't really see the threads. Once in a while there might be one that catches a bit, like that one had caught on the top, and once I've pushed it down it's looking much better. So I'm just going to keep working around until I'm back to where I started, but all the while I've got my fingers around keeping this little shank of the button in place. And it just also keeps it, I guess, secure on the front. It just so again happened that this doily was the perfect size for this button. I did look through my collection until I found one that was a good size. But yeah, I just think that is such a sweet, sweet little button. So I will at the end bring myself through the doily, put probably 2 knots in, again, just to be sure. And then I'll just try and sort of secrete my end into the doily and trim it off. Oops, I think I've managed to have a tiny bit of thread crossing across there. I'll just see if I can get that to sit better. There we go. So there you go. And so yeah, they're incredibly sweet. So we'll attach, I think, 3 of those to one of the embroidery cards, also one of the button cards. Oh, and let's do this other one. Let's do the diamond shaped one. So we can just take one of our diamonds. Let's get a fresh one over here. Let's take this one. But always keep your little bits, because sometimes you just, when you're doing a little slow stitch like decorative little collage, sometimes you just need the tiniest little piece of crocheting to add some interest. So again, I'll pick one that's a fully red one, but again, you could definitely overlay, because this one's a bit more distributed out. In fact, we could do that. What else have we got that we might want to work over for this one? How would it look over our multicoloured one? So that's kind of cool. Let's do that, because that looks a bit different to the other one that I've already done. Actually, no, we'll switch to, I will go back to the one that snapped before. Hopefully it won't do it twice. Should be stronger being a polyester. You would think. Made quite a squeaky sound then, didn't it? Can you hear the birds outside as well? It's coming into dusk outside. Been wanting to show you this, so I came up straight after dinner and thought, yep, I'll do the video now. And then I think I do need to tidy a few things away. Oops, that's just pulled through. Let's get a better knot in this at first to start off. So I'll just come through, and I might make an actual knot with my thread attaching to that first piece. And then what I might do is I'll come up and rather than carrying all the threads across to the other side, I'll actually just put some gathering, just sort of attach this one in working around the piece, putting little stitches in and then attaching it to the folds of the existing fabric that's here. Again, this is experimental because this is my first time doing an overlay on a pre-done bit of fabric. But I just thought it could look quite pretty, and it just gives you another option. I try and show you as many variations of things as possible. Now the cicadas are singing. That's such a sound of summer in Australia, when the cicadas, and it's amazing, they just come on all together. Not sure if you can hear it. It sounds like bells ringing. You might think it sounds like our fire alarm's going off, but I assure you it's not. It's just the cicadas of summer in Australia. So I'm just going to stretch this a bit and make sure it's positioning relatively centrally. And we can always come back around with a second round of stitches if we need. But I think it might be okay. So I'm just, catching the doily and then catching the fabric. Now the fabric is quite a thickish fabric, so it is a bit of a slight trouble to stitch through, but that's okay. And this is where the doily is slightly coming apart, but I'll just, pass my needle through another part if it's starting to unravel a bit somewhere. So it's slipped over a bit, so I'm just going to pull it back into position. Again, just catching my doily. I don't know how well I caught the doily. I haven't caught my fabric there, but that's okay. Try and get a better catch on that one. And so again, let's just pull it so that it's positioning nicely. Oh, I do love how that's looking. Then I'll just catch the loose little bits that haven't yet been caught. So I'll just catch these other bits over here where they're still looking just a little bit. Oops, unthreaded my needle, as I'm always want to do. All right. And then let's come through here and catch this bit of doily. So just wanting it so that there's no little bits sort of flapping their way out. So yeah, it definitely has helped doing a second round. It'll just give a nice shape at the end and just mean that it's a bit more robust too, particularly if there's any bits like this that look a little bit raggedy. It's good to get them anchored down. Okay, I think we're now looking pretty good. What do you think? Isn't that lovely? The the multicoloredness of that. I think that's really beautiful. Let's just get this piece anchored down as well, and then we'll just do a notch and another notch, and then we'll secrete our thread inside. Carefully snip our thread off, and there we go. Beautiful little flower crochet fabric button. So yeah, it definitely works. You can overlay over another button. So let's now show you how I attach these to the card. Now I have got a variation of them. So these ones all kind of had a little sort of like a flowery type design to them, so they were mixed colours, and so I've done 6 of them on those. That's a little bit more crammed. You could have sort of spread it out. This sort of variation I quite like, just with the 3. I generally prefer actually having odd numbers of things, so that's what I've done on this one as well. This one I did a 4, and they were all kind of these bluey and like maroony browny colours, so that's what I went for in those. This was 6 done with all the bluey flowers, possibly with some other little accent colours of yellowiness for them as well. So I think I'll do the 3, and what I recommend you do is create yourself a template if you're going to do quite a few of these, and that's what I've done, just using my large, what my friend Linda calls my javelin, and just putting the holes in place. So you can see I've got 2 sets of holes, 2 sets, and like a double set of holes, double set of holes, double set of holes there, and that can then be my template. And then when I want to create another button card, I just sit that on top of my other one, and then I use my javelin to put the markings in the card. And then I can come through and make an extra hole, just sort of using where the markings are and pushing it through. If you are going to do it into your table, and if your table is able to be damaged underneath, put a piece of, like, put a felt mat or something down to work into, so you don't damage your table. So yeah, highly recommend having a template one to use. And then I quite like to use a strong vintage crochet thread in a sort of a neutral colour, so that it will blend just into the background. These ones have got this background on it. I think most of these ones that I've done already have this, but I've also got, yeah, this background here. So let's do one of our little crochet, and they're obviously a bit bigger than the other ones, so they're going to sit quite close to each other. In fact, we might, for them, will that still work okay, I wonder? Or do we want to, we might do a different actual setup for those, so I'll do that in a moment. So let's do another set of buttons. Let's select which ones we want to have together. Do we have a little story that we want to create with our buttons? We've got maroony, it's got a little bit of maroon on it as well, so that could work. What else? Got that one. That could work as well quite nicely if we put our little flower one in the middle and had these. I think that's quite sweet, so let's go with that as a little collection. Get my, actually don't need my big javelin needle for this, I'll just use my regular needle for this. Get my crochet thread, and we will stitch it on. And apologies for any shadows, it is now dark outside, cicadas are still singing. I'll be interested if you can hear them on the video. Oops, and I've made a very dodgy knot there, so we'll just cut that off. And the cicadas just stopped, if you could hear them. And in fact, I don't even need to, I just forgot, I don't even need to be tying a knot, because we're actually going to tie a knot once we've stitched through. So ignore the knot tying. You don't need to do that. What you need to do is just hold your thread, so you've got a bit of a length of thread on the back, and then get your button, the first button. So as you can see, I can bring my needle with my thread through the shank. Make sure you're still holding onto your thread at the back, and then come through your other hole, the second hole. Try not to catch your card. Make sure it's not twisted around. So make sure it's straight, pull it up, and then keeping it nice and tight. Pull it nice and tight, and then do a second knot, keeping it nice and tight. And then you can just snip it off, so it's just a very short end on either bit of it. Leave your needle threaded, because you can then use that for the next button. So we're going to do this one next. So again, yeah, you don't need to tie a knot, you just need to come through one of your holes, leave a bit of an end of the thread on the back, come through the shank. And don't worry with this, like if you end up going through a bit of the fabric, it's fine, because when you're taking it off the card anyway, you'll just take your thread out of it and use some new thread to stitch it on. And so again, leaving myself a little tail and then tying a nice tight knot is the key. Making it as tight as you can and then just trimming it off. And then we'll do our final one on this card. So it's a pretty quick process once you've created your template. As you'll see, we'll make a slightly different template for the crochet ones because they are that little bit bigger. And coming through the other hole, making sure it's sitting straight, and then tying a knot, and then tying a second nice tight, oops, and I pulled too hard obviously, so we will just redo that one. Got a bit over exuberant I did, Christine. Okay, let's do this again. Hopefully I haven't weakened the crochet thread. Stitching through, anchoring it on, and then tying it. Keeping it nice and tight and bringing it down. And there you go. That is a sweet, sweet little card. They'd go perfectly, actually, these ones, on my burgundy Bonheur family heirloom quilt, so I may well use those ones sooner rather than later. So let's come up with how we want to space out our crochet ones to maximize their prettiness. So I think they'd be quite nice spaced a bit more like this. So, and I've managed to drop down my needles. I'm just going to pick that up. So I think we'll put our bottom holes sort of down here-ish. And it doesn't have to be super, super precise. And then we'll put our top holes, just really sort of lining them up with this lot here. So sort of about-ish there. And about-ish there. And then we want to come about equal distance down, so that would be about here, and I should probably have the hole about maybe a bit further across, maybe just about there and about there. So let's see how that goes. We'll get a new piece of crochet thread, put aside our javelin needle, thread up this one, remembering we don't need to tie a knot in the end, and then we're going to pop through, holding on, like that. And then these are really easy because the shank's very easily poking out. And again, just make sure they're not twisted at the back. Then tie. There's a lot of the vintage ones that are like threaded at the back of a card. They're all threaded together, so when you take one off, they all kind of become unthreaded. But I thought this would be a more useful idea. So these ones are a bit more bobbly because obviously the shank's a bit more just sticking out itself, so they do tend to wobble around a bit more on the card. I think I'd be pretty thrilled if I received any of these buttons, but particularly I think these mock, well, not really mock, they are crocheted, they're just not crocheted onto the button, like the ones that the lovely Beck from So Be Curated shared. And it sounded like, yeah, they were quite rare, not something she'd seen a lot of. They're not something I've seen a lot of either, so that's why I was so excited by the prospect of making my own. But I can't crochet, well, I'm not really a crocheter. I can do single strand of crochet with my finger crocheting. I'm sure I could learn. I'm sure at some point I probably will learn, because I do tend to just sort of gather up techniques. But at the moment, this would be quite advanced for me. Okay. Let us. There we go. What I might do at the end, if you want to stick around, is I'll show you my other little $3 haul of doilies that I got from the same op shop, the Salvos in Wonthaggi, when we were down for a beach picnic the other day, because I got some pieces that are actually quite unique, that I don't have anything like it in my collection. And it was just a few of them. There's only about 6, I think, in total. So yeah, that is the beautiful little crocheted ones. So yeah, let's just give you a look. These are the little embroidered ones, and I'll probably end up making a card with, because I've got some more pieces of that to use. So I'll probably make a card with 3 of those on them. And then yeah, just so many options for you, and just how beautiful are these. And some of them, like, you can use these lovely, I got a whole lot of these little vintage squares from the sewing layer, like tiny little squares that had these lovely vintage fabrics on them. That one was from that. That one was as well. This one was as well. So yeah, just such a great way to use some small bits of fabric and some precious bits. And I do absolutely love that overlaid fabric and doily button. That's really special. So such fun. I hope you like the idea. Let me know if you're going to make some yourself, and just such a great way to use scraps, but also to use old buttons. I hope you have some finds either in your own stash or at op shops. Now let me, I'll just push these to the side, and let me give you a quick look at, I'll bring you up a little bit, at some of the doilies, or the doilies that I got. So this whole pile here was $3. So this is a beautiful water lily doily, really lovely edging on it actually, and a beautiful linen. And you can just see, like, the back, even the back, I sometimes have to kind of look at it and go, which one's the back, which is the front. You can only just tell that this is the back by some of these other little bits of thread. So I think that's incredibly sweet. I love how the water has been done. And there's a second little matching one, but again, it's just got that, I think they've used a variegated thread, and you can see that the thread is different colours in different places on the two pieces. So there were those. Then there was this one, which is just so lovely. And again, I've got nothing like this in my collection. It's got this beautiful little temple up here, and then it's got these dancing ballerinas. I'm not sure how well you can see. Let me just bring them up. It's incredibly delicate work. Even the faces, which is so hard to get a face that looks good in stitching. But then another beautiful little ballerina, another little one here, and then on the other side there are 2 more, and it's just so sweet. I think just look at the fine detail on that, and the little flowers in the hair and the ground. And so I'm pretty sure this has been done by the same hand that's done this one. Like the little cross strokes kind of look very reminiscent, and in fact I think that's even the same coloured thread between the dress and that upper bit of the thread. So I just love when you can kind of get a little collection that's possibly from the same hand. Oh, and in fact, the other thing, I think they've used the same crochet thread. It's not the same stitch, but I was going to say both of them have the really lovely crochet edging on them. So, and the beautiful, the beautiful work, almost like the eyelet around where the crochet is attached to. Threads attached to this. This one's really sweet. It is a vegetable. I imagine it would be like a placemat, but with applique vegetables. So beautiful carrot. I love that it's got the variation of colour in it. An eggplant, leaves, 2 tomatoes. And then on the other corner over here, we've got some green capsicums, some mushroom, and a radish and some more leaves. So yeah, I just think that is so beautiful. And look at the really delicate blanket stitch and the applique, needle turn applique of that, and a lovely bright red border on it. So I think that's really sweet. I don't have anything like that in my collection. Then this tablecloth is amazing, like that this was all included in the $3. It's only got some very, very minor, and I haven't even given this a really intense soak. I was quite excited about them, so I just kind of washed them and put them out on the line. But again, look how neat this is. I don't think I can even immediately tell which is the front and which is the back. In fact, I think this might be the back, and I think this might be the front, but it's a bit hard to tell. It's so perfectly done, but just look how fine the detailed stitching is along these little sections. Just such exquisite thread work. And I don't have anything in this kind of greeny colour, and it's a beautiful cotton, all hand stitched, and as I say, it's in very, very good condition, so that's amazing. Then I got this one, and again, don't have anything quite like this in my collection, but I just love these applique flowers, all done by hand. Again, just minute gorgeous stitching. I love that it goes through all the different colours around the edge. No staining or damage to it. It does look like, I don't know if this was originally how the fabric was, but it looks like there's maybe a bit of fading possibly, and maybe these were actually brighter originally, because that one even seems to have a bit of colour variation, but I don't know if that might have been intentional in the original. But yeah, incredibly lovely. So I think if I do use it in something, I'll want to keep it whole. I don't think I'll be chopping into this one. I might end up doing some stitching over the brown, because I'm not as much of a brown girl, but I don't mind browns. Now this is the final one, and it is incredibly lovely. You're probably familiar with this kind of needle turn applique, but this is one of those scone carriers. So let me just remember how it goes together. And so something I'm very interested with this one is I don't think I'm going to cut it apart. I think it's too precious in its original form. I'll just work out some way that I can kind of keep its original form, but repurpose it for something in my craft room, probably actually just for some sort of storage. I'm thinking if I can attach something as a little hanger and hang it like this, then I can use each of these pockets to keep things in, even maybe keeping some of my threads or something. And wouldn't that be lovely if it was just suspended somewhere, and you could look into each of the pockets. Travis here has already managed to secrete itself in the pocket, but I just think that is so lovely, with every pocket having an applique in it. So I was thrilled. I would have happily paid more than $3 for even one of these items, particularly for something like this. I would have even probably got it at $10 or even $15, because I just think it's absolutely gorgeous, and I've not seen anything like this. So I hope you enjoyed the main video, the tutorial, but for those of you that like a bit of a haul video, here's just a little mini haul, and that's really where I'm probably going to be focusing from here on in, unless I end up with a really amazing sort of bulk lot that I get for a particular thing. I'm really just trying to add things to my collection that are different to what I've already got, and using my stash more. Today the Embroiderers Guild was having their de-stash sale, and I was very good, and I didn't go along because I knew if I went I would buy things, and I really do have such a bounty of goodness in my craft room. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you've got some inspiration, and I hope you have a most lovely week ahead. Bye everyone.